15 seconds. Depends on which clock we look at. AT&T says now. Just a reminder, please turn your phones to vibrate, please. You ready, regular? Call the December 1st Plan Commission meeting order. Mr. Martinez, please call, Ms. X, please call the roll.
Mayor Olson?
Here.
Burkhart? Commissioner Morrow?
Here.
Alderwoman Hanneman?
Here.
Commissioner Leon?
Here.
Commissioners Hogan and Kelly Harris.
We have a quorum. Please rise and join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. This is a great turnout. I'm really pleased to see you all here. It's good that you come and be involved in this and hear directly from the developers, their plans. Emily's nodding yes. And get the facts. So that's great that you're here. We look forward to hearing your comments. Why do you, it is a great neighborhood. And you weren't on the record, so you want to do it again?
For the record.
That still doesn't work. You got to push your button. You remember? You're losing track here.
For the record, I think everyone heard me. I live in a great neighborhood. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Okay. Commercials aside, we'll move on to the regular order of business. Item B, approval of the regular meeting minutes of November 17th. Any additions or corrections?
Move to approve.
Second.
Hanneman and Leon, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. By the way, action of the Plan Commission requires 4 affirmative votes. So just so you know going in. So depending on what happens, the mayor may choose to vote. You're ready to go, aren't you? Okay, let's do it. This will take a minute, so you might as well have a seat. So, all right, with that, we move on to item C1, a public hearing on a planned development district proposal for a mixed-use building on the Ballpark Commons development. Mr. Martinez, you have a meeting notice, a hearing notice. Ms. X, you have a meeting notice.
City of Franklin Plan Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 1st, 2022 at 7:00 p.m. in the Common Council chambers at the Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132, to take public comments regarding an application for approval of an ordinance to amend 15-30442 of the Unified Development Ordinance, Planned Development District Number 37, the Rock Sports Complex, Ballpark Commons, to allow for a 3-story mixed-use building with residential units on the ground floor, as well as commercial units allowed by the district, and 692 square foot studio apartments. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of 6223-7D2 of the Wisconsin statutes and Division 15-9. 0200 of the City of Franklin UDO. A map showing the property affected, full legal description, the application, and all supporting materials are available for review and may be obtained from the City Council by way of request to the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall. Same address as the Council, 414-425-4024 during normal business hours. A copy of the proposed draft ordinance is available and open for inspection at the public by the public at the office of the City Clerk at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road during normal business hours. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input.
Appears we have a properly noticed public hearing. Mr. Martinez, would you give us the simple language version of what we're talking about tonight?
Sure. Good evening. Regulo Martinez, Principal Planner with the City Development Department. This request is not for the site plan for the building. This request is only for an amendment to the Planned Development District that requires that in this area, that is the mixed-use area of the Ballpark Commons Planned Development District, apartments are only allowed in upper floors levels. So apartments are not allowed in the ground floor per the original Planned Development District. So the applicant's request is to allow for ground floor apartments for this building. So the building as proposed has an area that is for, commercial space is approximately 5,000 square feet, and the rest will be for residential apartments specifically. This is a view of the floor plan of the ground floor. We can see the retail area here and the rest for apartments. This is a view from the sidewalk on Ballpark Drive. We can see the area here for commercial, and the rest will be for the apartments. The staff recommendation for this request is to recommend approval of the applicant request only for the street frontage of Ballpark Drive. That, let me take that back. Staff recommends approval of the proposal of the applicant only along Rawson Avenue to allow apartments only on Rawson Avenue. Why? Because there is a landscape buffer yard easement that was created when this lot was created by a certified survey map. Because the Unified Development Ordinance requires landscape buffer when a new lot is adjacent to an arterial or a collector road, like Rawson Avenue that is here. So the staff recommendation is that the applicant provides commercial in the frontage along Ballpark Drive, because that is the intent of the mixed-use area of the planned development district that is in the report, because the intent is to have ground floor retail and commercial and office uses, and allow only for apartments in the upper floors. However, the applicant objects that recommendation of staff. The applicant can provide further details about their justification. And I would like to make a correction on the report, because the original request was to also allow for smaller apartments under 700 square feet. But it was determined that this request was not necessary because the planned development district asked for an average. So in average, they meet the standard for the floor area for apartments. So that second request that is in the report is not necessary. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, before we get going, let's orient everybody to what we're talking about. This is
Sorry.
Thank you, Regulo. This is Loomis Road. I'm sorry, yes, Loomis Road, right here. This is Rawson Avenue. This is Ballpark Drive. Across the street here is the office building with Wheel and Sprocket and Ballpark Commons offices, and the YMCA is over here. So with that, yep. Ms. Cialdini or Mr. Martin, want to give us your presentation, please?
So I'm Emily Cialdini, Senior Development Associate with the Mandel Group. Our address is 330 East Kilbourne Ave, Suite 600 South, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202. Is there a clicker?
Sure.
So we have a full-on presentation that talks about our comprehensive redevelopment efforts in the city of Franklin, why we're focused on redevelopment and excited about it. So I'm going to skip through a lot of the presentation and maybe circle back to it when we get to the next item on the agenda. But I do want to respond to the technical requirements that Regulo mentioned with regard to the M1 building. So excuse me. So one of the items that we wanted to share with you tonight is that we've really worked on branding each of our development efforts separately. We think that branding is super important to guide the vision and direction of each of these projects. So the new name for the M1 building at Ballpark Commons is Bad Axe Flats. Some of the history behind Bad Axe is the city of Franklin was actually once called Bad Axe. A long time ago, that was the city of Franklin's name we discovered. And we just really like the playful, fun, kind of energetic vibe this name and brand identity gives out. We think it matches perfectly the district intent of Ballpark Commons as kind of this lifestyle, entertainment, sports environment. So you'll hear me refer to the project from here on out as Bad Axe. So just to frame some of what Regulo has already shared this evening, the work to date on the project and kind of the next steps for it. So we went before the Common Council in early October for a concept review on the project. We received a favorable recommendation and feedback from the Common Council, so advanced it further. As Regulo mentioned, on the agenda tonight is a major PDD amendment for the first floor residential uses. This project will come before you again for a specific site plan approval, where we will be requesting a front yard setback variance from 25 feet down to 10 feet, and I'll talk a little bit about that further, and a special use permit to allow for 80 residential units, and then of course the TIF request, which application has not yet been submitted. So the program here is 80 apartment units with associated amenity space. That includes a club room, our leasing offices, fitness center, pool and pool deck. And we also have about 6,000 square feet of retail commercial space on the southwest corner of the building. The interest we've received to date is for a top-notch operator of craft beer and wine. So they'll be taking up about 4,000 square feet of that space, plus a roughly 2,000 square foot outdoor patio. And then we've also received interest for the balance of 2,000 square feet for a local salon. So as Regulo mentioned, we feel, you know, the overall district intent of creating or having first floor commercial uses is really to provide this active, urban, vibrant, walkable environment within this district. And we think the building as designed, even though it has first floor residential uses, it's still consistent with that intent and design. So we, as I mentioned, we've got all the commercial space in the southwest corner of the building. We've got, you know, 3,000 square feet of active amenity spaces that kind of acts like commercial space. You know, we'll have residents going in and out of there all day long. We've got, you know, the outdoor pool deck and plaza, which is some of our most popular amenities. So there'll be people out there, you know, walking along the site and engaged on the site, creating that kind of urban environment that the district desires. The other thing is, you know, we feel first floor residential units are activated spaces. There'll be lights on. It also matches, you know, the balance of the Ballpark Commons development area south of Rawson. Vale Village has first floor units, as does New Perspective. And those were honestly some of our most popular units. They were the first to go, largely from pet owners who just like having easy access to walk their pets in and out of the building. So that also creates activation in this area. You know, we'd love to have 15,000, 30,000 square feet of first floor commercial space, but that's just not really realistic given the market interest we've received to date. Mandel Group owns and operates, you know, probably some of the most first floor commercial uses in the metro area, and even in the most urban settings, it's often hard to keep those spaces full. So we wouldn't want to, you know, provide 15,000 square feet of commercial space just to have it sit vacant and have the lights off. I think that is contradictory to what the whole district is looking for. So this isn't on your agenda this evening, but I do think it demonstrates our desire and our effort to create this urban edge and activated space within this development. So the required PDD front yard setback is 25 feet. That's represented by the red line on the screen. we are requesting setback variance to 10 feet to reduce that setback variance, to bring it closer to Ballpark Drive, to make it more walkable to the residents at Valo Village and New Perspective. So I think it adds to our desire to make sure this is an activated space. So those are our technical responses to BADX, also known as M1. Happy to answer any other questions or comments regarding.
Just an additional comment that in
Sure.
your seats have an ordinance with the corrections proposed by the applicant. There's technical corrections.
Okay. Okay, so you've heard from staff, hopefully with the scaled down version. You've heard from the developer. Now it's our time to hear from you. The way this works is, please come up and give us, you guys can stay. Give us your name and address and then tell us what you'd like to tell us. Typically, we won't respond, but we may. So, you were up first, ma'am. Oh, I'll open a public hearing. Yes, ma'am, give us your name and address. Yeah.
My suggestion is, I'm sorry, my name's Joan Nealon. And my understanding was that near my corner, they wanted to go through for access to the park.
Okay, that's the next item on the agenda. That's not this one. But if you want to finish, go ahead, but that's the next one.
So what I wanted to say pertaining to that was, there are 3 exits near Pick and Save. You've got, first of all, you got Loomis Road that the apartments can get in and out of there. And you have South 76, and you have 76 of the Boston area. So there are 3 main roads, 4 exits and entry for them apartments, rather than having a road cut through our neighborhood. And what I'd like to say is the value of our property is important. Well, I'm supposed to say me instead of the. So I'm saying the property that I have and some of my neighbors are very important to us. We worked all our lives. We put a lot of money into our homes, property. And I personally feel that it would devalue our property to have a road run there with a lot of traffic. If I wanted to live in a congested area, I would have stayed in Milwaukee. But I didn't want that. I wanted a nice neighborhood with nice neighbors and have a comfortable living situation. And I think that a road through there would destroy everything that I thought I had.
Thank you, ma'am. So again, this is on the one across the street, so let's try to do that, sir.
Dan Johnson, address 750 Nottingham. And I just have some questions. So, first question out of the box is going to be financed. Is there any taxpayer portion of
The financing, the developer will take care of. There is no taxpayer funding of this. Well, let me answer that both ways. There is no TIF funding for it, but you're talking again about the other development, not this one. Or you're talking about this one. Okay,
so how is it financed?
this is, Mr. Martin, you want to?
Yeah, so the main piece of the capital stack will be what you'd expect, which is cash equity, just like when you buy a home, we'll get a loan from a bank. if you read the news, you know interest rates are pretty wild right now, and so are construction costs. So it's a little too soon to tell exactly how much the project's going to cost, but that'll be something obviously we have to resolve before we break ground on it.
So is city and
We have not.
free of liability
We-
if you don't
Yes, we have not. I think you're referring to a tax incremental financing or some other municipal financing. We
secondary.
mortgage or subordinate debt or preferred equity or any number of different structures. And so what I can share with you is we have not submitted for any public financing on this project or any others we have tonight. I think there is a chance that that may happen. When we have structured some deals with the city of Franklin previously on Velo Village. Each one of those was structured such that it was a municipal revenue obligation, which meant that we didn't get any money unless we actually created the tax value. So that's a little bit different than some structures you see. I think when Ballpark Commons, for example, was first started, there was some upfront money and then they had to build it. We didn't do that at Velo Village. We don't propose that on our project. So what we would propose, if we had to propose it, right, we got to pass the but-for test if it goes down that road and prove it all out. But if we did do that, it would be structured as a MRO payment where we don't get anything unless we actually build it and create the value, and then that eliminates the risk to the city and the taxpayer. Yep.
And transparency, this is in a tax incremental financing district. It's not part of a project plan, and there is no plan to spend money on this project. Anyone else on this side of the street? Anybody else on this side? Okay, last chance. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing, open questions from the commission. City engineer.
Hi, couple questions. Early in some of our meetings, we talked about possibility of Ballpark Commons connecting to Loomis Road, and I think that could happen. You guys have done TIA. I haven't seen that yet. But when that does happen, I believe we're still talking about getting rid of the ramps there. So what happens to this facility? Do you have some expansion plans, or would it just be a landscaping berm, or what's the plan for that?
I think we still have to see, unfortunately, the timing, I think, of both projects, and the DOT project is probably after this one. But we're certainly be willing to look at some sort of expansion or secondary development on that parcel. Should
You think it could house another building?
There won't be enough. I don't think there'll be another building. If anything, maybe we could add a little bit of square footage on the east end of this where we would pick up the ground. But I mean, as you know, that's a pretty steep downhill. So when I think about expanding the building that direction, and I think about the retaining wall work and everything that would go along with it, I think the likely outcome is that we just figure out a nice landscape plan so it looks attractive. But I don't, there's no plans, no architects or engineers are working on making a bigger building right now. And I think it'd be, even if it, as Emily said, the timing worked out such that we could do that, it would be, my gut tells me it'd be cost prohibitive to make that a possibility.
Okay. And then my second question is, you somewhat addressed it, but if you could probably maybe state it more clearly. Obviously, we're trying to look for biggest and best use, and so I understand that ground floor apartments are desirable, but is that more desirable than commercial, where we actually get more money value-wise?
I think the value on the commercial depends entirely on the rental rate you're going to get. And I can tell you as Emily said, the amount of interest we have in the commercial space right now is, I would say it's soft at best. Nobody's banging down our door to do it. We have the best brokers in the market at CBRE calling everybody they can find. They're working their way through the list, and we're real happy with the ones we got. But I'll tell you, even those deals have economics that are such that the apartment revenue is essentially going to subsidize those commercial uses. There's no doubt that if it was purely an economic analysis and we weren't concerned as a staff is about how do we activate the district the way it was intended, everybody would be better off financially if it was 100% apartments. But we understand that there's a bigger conversation.
Thanks.
Alderman Hanneman.
Thank you. Just a couple clarifications for me here. So I'm understanding that for the front yard setback is not part of tonight's agenda. Will that require then another public hearing for that?
Because unlike other zoning districts, in this Ballpark Common District, the Plan Commission has the authority
Okay.
to waive the setback with a site plan.
Thank you. So then my second question, you did refer to that we had an updated ordinance here reflecting what had been discussed, but they're both dated draft of 10/27/22. So am I missing? I thought that was for the next item.
Correct, yeah, that's for the next item.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I just want to make sure
You-
that whatever motion I have here then coincides correctly with the ordinance we have.
Right, the ordinance with the recent changes has highlights and has a red block text.
There.
That one, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because the red date was different. So if there are no questions from other colleagues,
Mr. City Attorney.
otherwise I think a motion.
Mr. Martinez, with regard to the draft ordinance, including the handout, Section 1 specifically states that it is only for this specific property. But then Section 2 amends the table to add mixed-use buildings up to 4 floors in height. Residential apartments are permitted on ground and upper floors. And if it's in the table, does not that apply district-wide then? There should be a note that it's only applicable to this property.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this section that is referring in section 2 applies to the mixed-use area of Ballpark Commons, which is this property and the property to the west, that is the property for the future hotel application. It will be that area.
So it would apply to the other property also then?
Technically, yes, because it's amended this section of the ordinance.
Well, then, okay, so when you say located, it says approximately southeast corner, West Rawson Avenue. And now I think I'm hearing reference to also the southwest corner.
Correct, yeah, because that's the section, the mixed-use area of the Ballpark Commons.
Well, if it applies to that, the
Right.
ordinance should state that.
Yeah, that you're correct.
Anyone else on the commission? Alderman Hanneman?
So then would a proper motion include that clarification in naming it as the Bad Axe Flats specifically within the ordinance as a technical correction?
Mm,
The Bad Axe Flats is the project here that we've presented, and we agree with you that that's the only piece that we're looking to have first floor residential. We're not seeking that for what's going to become the hotel on, I think, the southwest corner of Ballpark and Rawson. So
then section 1 should be left as is, and the table should clarify that with a note.
Okay.
All right. Then I will move to recommend approval of an ordinance to amend subsection 15-3.0442 of the Unified Development Ordinance, Plan Development District Number 37, parentheses, the Rock Sports Complex and Ballpark Commons, to allow for a 3-story mixed-use building with residential units on the ground floor, as well as commercial units allowed by the district at approximately the southeast corner of West Rawson Avenue and South Ballpark Drive, with technical corrections by the city attorney.
A motion was made by Alderman Hanneman, seconded by Commissioner Leone. On the motion,
Aye.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, with that, we move on to the next agenda item.
Mayor? Okay. Before we move on to agenda item C2, I will abstain from this and trust the questions and comments from my neighbors.
Okay. Okay. With that, Ms. X, you have a public hearing notice to read.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant in this matter is Wetland Treehouse LLC, Ross and Loomis LLC property owner. The City of Franklin Plan Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 1st, 2022 at 7:00 p.m. in the Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin 53132, to take public comments regarding an application to create the Retreat, temporary namesake, a new mixed-use luxury residential and commercial planned development district, which includes 358 apartments, 2.52 acres of retail outlots, a public street connecting Terrace Drive with South Loomis Road, private drives to serve 10 multifamily buildings, 2 townhouse clusters, and a clubhouse, with resident amenities including a patio space with an outdoor kitchen and private pool, and adjacent outdoor uses including pickleball courts, putting and chipping green, professionally managed gardens, and an open green space, and to rezone the property from R6 Suburban Single Family Residence District and C1 Conservancy District to Planned Development District Number 41, currently named The Retreat. The site of the proposed planned development district is approximately 51.61 acres of land located at 8301 West Old Loomis Road, currently zoned R6 Suburban Single Family Residence, etc. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of 6223(7)B of the Wisconsin statutes and sections 15-90205 and 15-90208 of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. A map showing the property affected, full legal description and application, and all supporting materials are available for review and may be obtained from the City Council by way of request to the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, during normal business hours. A copy of the proposed Plan Development District Ordinance in draft form is available and open for inspection by the public at the office of the City Clerk at Franklin City Hall, same address, during normal business hours. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input.
Appears we have a properly noticed public hearing. Before I do you, Mr. Martinez, I want to orient people again. This is Loomis Road. This is the off-ramp. It starts right about here. It goes up here. This is Terrace Drive, the stub of it right there. These are the 2 cul-de-sacs. I want to say Winston, Canterbury, okay. 85th Street, close. So here's the orientation of the property, and Mr. Martinez will show us the layout now.
This is Plan Development District application and Comprehensive Master Plan amendment. The applicant is requesting the Plan Development District because the site is currently zoned R6 that allows for single-family residential, and the applicant is proposing multifamily residential and commercial uses that are not allowed in this residential zoning district. So that's why they are proposing to create a new planned development district. This will be in the number 41. Just like Ballpark Commons is a planned development district, so it's the same type of development, because it's not, it's different than other developments in the zoning district that have the unified development ordinance. So this is for allow for flexible design. That is basically the intent of the planned development districts. So, and for the comprehensive master plan amendment, I will go into that. This is a view of the future land use map of the comprehensive master plan of the city of Franklin that has the property for commercial designation, that is red, and area of natural resources, that is this light green color. This map does not include, for example, this area that is now mixed use because it was amended for the Ballpark Commons development. So what the applicant is proposing is to change the designation of this property for mixed use to allow for this development, the retreat that is mixed use horizontal because these three lots are planned for commercial uses, and the rest of the site will be for multifamily residential, and this southeast area basically for natural resource protection. With regards to the objective of the comprehensive master plan, there is a map with the comprehensive master plan that is for the potential development areas of the cities. So this is the entire city. We can see the site here that is in red, that is for potential commercial and mixed-use development. So in this regards, the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive master plan. However, there is another map of the master plan that is for environmental sensitive areas. So we can see the site here. This is the natural resource protection plan that we'll say is a close up. We can see the southeast area of the site with natural resources that has wetlands, woodlands, and an area that was delineated by the Regional Planning Commission as an isolated natural area. So the staff recommendation for the comprehensive master plan amendment is that the applicant provide an exhibit outlining the areas for mixed use and the area for natural resource. Because as requested by the applicant and presenting in the ordinance, is to change the designation of the entire property for mixed use. So that is the staff recommendation with regards to the comprehensive master plan amendment. I would like to know that if the Plan Commission wishes to recommend approval of the comprehensive master plan amendment, the protection for the natural resources will remain because the applicant will need to obtain the natural resource special exception and get conservation easement to allow for disturbance of the natural resource areas. Okay. With regards to the PDD, I will go back to this table later. Let me brief description of the project. So we can see all these multifamily buildings, approximately 358 dwelling units, approximately, and the 3 commercial lots. So the Unified Development Ordinance, even if the Planned Development District allows for flexible development standards, the Unified Development Ordinance has some limits on that that we can see in this table. And this is a quote for the Unified Development Ordinance that says that the maximum site intensity and density standards in planned development districts shall not exceed those in this table. So first, with the residential part of I will go first with the minimum open space ratio, a ratio that is the area that the developer will need to leave undisturbed for recreation or natural resource protection. The proposal meet that standard. that is 35%. But the proposal is exceeding the maximum and gross density. The proposed density will be approximately, the net density will be approximately 30 dwelling units per acre, while the maximum is 8 dwelling units per acre. One example is the Ballpark Commons development, Velo Village area, that has, by the approved ordinance, a maximum density of 16 dwelling units per acre that was approved because of this note here, note A here, that says the Plan Commission and Common Council may approve densities over the stated gross density and net density with the provision of the development meets a community purpose, such as residential housing for older persons. The Ballpark Commons area has the new perspective senior living, so that's why it was approved to have a higher density in that case. For the commercial area, there is also a standard. There is the minimum landscape surface ratio. It's also exceeding that standard. It requires that a minimum of 45% of the lot area has to be for landscape areas. So what the applicant is proposing at 10%. And it's also exceeding the floor area ratio. The floor area ratio is the amount of the square footage that can be built based on the lot area. So it's exceeding by far the floor area ratio.
Before you go on, I just want to remind everybody in the audience that this is the scaled down version of what we're talking about. This is the, let everybody understand what we're talking about.
Right.
Right? Okay. Doing a good job, Regulo. Does everybody understand? Everybody nod. Okay, there you go.
Next, I will go to the access. I know that some neighbor has concern about the access. I would like to mention that Loomis Road is subject to state jurisdiction. So the access point to Loomis has to be approved by the Department of Transportation. In the meeting packet, you can see that the applicant has been in communication with DOT with regards to the access. And the applicant is also proposing a public road that would connect Loomis Road to this point here to what is called Terrace Drive. I'd like to mention that the certified survey map for this lot has a reservation for public for right-of-way purposes. So this street is planned years ago. It's not new that this street is being planned or proposed. What staff is recommending with regards to access is that the applicant provides some kind of connection either with a private or public road or cross-access or easement to the property to the west, because this property to have access approved by DOT will be difficult. And you can see in the report there is an appendix with email communication from DOT stating that, confirming that, sorry. Okay. Also, another point with regard to access is that there is a section of the Unified Development Ordinance that require a minimum distance between a local street and an arterial street like Loomis. That distance is 150 feet. This proposal has 110 feet. So if this is approved, when the applicant submit for the land division or certified survey map, they will need to request a land division variance of that requirement. Staff understand that requirement because these are wetlands area. So to have this street further to the southeast will be difficult because of the wetlands. Okay. I would like to add some additional comments that in your seat you have a draft ordinance with revisions by the applicant, but these revisions are not only technical correction. They are like substantive changes, I will say, because the ordinance as proposed by the applicant is less specific, because all the development standards that staff propose are being deleted, and the applicant is proposing like more general standards, like the maximum area for the commercial, that is 5 acres approximately, and the maximum quantity of the dwelling units that will be approximately 400. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. That was the fun bite, the part you're all here for, I assume. So the deal is the same. Come on up, give us your name and address. We're going to hear a lot of the same things over and over tonight. So if you're going to say the same thing someone else said, just say I agree with whoever. It'll save everybody else some time. Sir, good evening. Give us your name and address, please.
Vito Capochas, 7741 Peter, the Whitnall Terrace complex. Been a great boon to the community as far as taxes, up in value. I don't want the village or the city of Franklin start losing revenue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaposias. I screwed up. I did not do the proper procedure here, so hold that thought. I did not open a public hearing, nor did I have the presentation from the applicant. So you may want to sit down, but you're first up. And Mr. Kaposias can come up and say what he wants to say again. Ms. Cialdini or Mr. Martin? I was just looking forward to hearing what you had to say, so.
Again, I'm going to just jump into the technical considerations. Fergal has addressed the majority of them. So again, our site plan. So this site plan reflects 3 retail outlots along Loomis and 358 apartment units. The new branding behind this one is Vitology Living. The basis for this entire site concept and site plan was not to impose our mixed-use development onto the site, rather to allow the ecological features like the wetlands and the woodlands to inform our building placement and overall site design. So with that being kind of the impetus behind the site planning, you know, this is really a wellness-focused, holistic approach to habitation. It includes tons of outdoor amenities, outdoor spaces, walking trails through the woods and boardwalks over the wetlands, but really designed to appeal someone for a slow living or a nature-oriented environment to live in. Some representative imagery of the interior design intent, but natural features, simple application of simple materials. So again, we went before the Common Council for a concept review and received favorable feedback from the Common Council. Regular mentioned, we're on the agenda for the comp plan amendment and general PDD. We'll go before the Common Council on December 20th, provided we get a favorable recommendation here. A hallmark of our developments is to hold a neighborhood meeting to solicit feedback from neighbors and stakeholders within the community. So we will certainly do that in the month of December to make sure we're able to engage with all of the residents and understand their feedback outside of the public hearing tonight. And then we'll be back for a plan commission review and TIF review on the project. So I know Regulo got kind of into the details on the site intensity calculations and standards required of a general PD or a PDD. But the UDO also allows for the Plan Commission and Common Council to review a project based on its general character, scope, and appearance of the proposed development. And that's what we have here before you tonight. So what we're requesting is a general PDD that would allow for up to 5 acres of commercial development and up to 400 apartment units. And really the basis for that is because we feel at this time we need to get more input from neighbors. We need to get more input from elected officials. We need to do additional site investigation to understand what the site constraints are. So while the site plan in your packets today, shows 358 units, there's an opportunity that could go down. There's an opportunity it could go up to 400 units. We just need the flexibility to work through some of those issues, but understand that the city is on board with our proposed concept. So as I mentioned, we're looking at 358 units, 3 retail outlets in the current concept. The residential units are, studio or junior 1 bedrooms all the way through 3 bedrooms, and they're contained in 3 different building styles. So we have a 2-story building. These are all private entry units, so no common corridor. You walk right up to your front door. 40% of the units will have an attached garage, so you just pull into your garage and then you walk right to your unit from your private garage. There's a 3-story concept, which is similar to this 2-story, but on floors 2 through 3, you would access your unit from a smaller corridor or just maybe share a stairwell 3 to 4 other people. And then we also have townhome units. So these are 2 floors of living spaces over a 2-car attached garage. There'll be 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. As I mentioned, tons of outdoor and nature-focused resident amenities, pickleball courts, chipping, putting greens, community gardens, outdoor pool deck. We've got a 4,000 square foot clubhouse that'll contain a fitness center and house our leasing staff and a nice club room area. And over 70% of the site is green space. Some renderings that just demonstrate like how spread out and how open and green this site is, and just the amount of wetlands and woodlands that we're preserving. The focus on landscaping and green spaces, but also creating areas for pedestrian connectivity and walkways. The architectural design intent is kind of a modern take on the traditional residential forms. So gabled roofs, peaked roofs, but a limited use of high quality materials, and really focusing on connections with walkways and natural landscaping. So I can get into some of the technical considerations, or I can wait to respond after the public hearing, I guess.
Well, we know the questions are going to come up, so why don't you do it now?
Sure, sounds good. So we do know one of the items here that a lot of people have questions on is just traffic and vehicular mobility through the site. So we've had ongoing conversation and coordination with the DOT for access to the development. We do have a traffic impact analysis that is underway. We're just waiting on some feedback from the DOT on scoping, but that should be submitted to the DOT next week. What we've heard from them thus far is that they're likely to grant us a full access intersection at Loomis and Ballpark Drive. We're conducting traffic counts on Loomis, Rawson, 76, and I think 11 other nearby intersections to validate whether a traffic signal stoplight is warranted at this location. We do think it's likely that traffic signal will be the best route to go here. If that's the case, what the DOT is going to require is that all of the southbound access lanes and distributor collector roads be decommissioned, which is shown here on this drawing with red X's. The reason for that being is this traffic pattern isn't one the DOT would necessarily use today. if they were designing a new traffic system, it's not the safest condition, quite honestly. So a traffic signal would create a much safer traffic pattern and condition. So that's what we know to date, that TIA will certainly be submitted to engineering and planning staff for their review and comment. We also know that staff wanted us to take a look at the Warwick Drive and Loomis Road intersection, so we are studying that area and understanding how they would maintain access to Loomis. And then the Terrace Drive Public Road extension. So during preliminary concept review with engineering and planning, engineering recommended that we provide a public road that connects Loomis to Terrace Drive that would extend past our property line, so it would have to cross the third-party property, but it, as you mentioned, through an existing right-of-way on dedication. I don't know exactly, reservation, sorry. I don't know exactly when that reservation occurred. I do have, I think the CSM that you're referring to was reported in 2000. And yeah, yeah. And I know this will be a topic of conversation here tonight, so we're willing to explore other opportunities should the city want us to look at something, some other sort of connection. As long as we have the access to Loomis Road, it's going to be our main connection to our development. There's not, by the way, I should mention our traffic consultant, Alex Cohen with Ayers and Associates, is here tonight if specific questions come up. The reality of the situation is that the majority of traffic, 75% of the traffic trips, are going to enter and exit onto Loomis. There's a very limited amount that are actually going to head east on this Terrace Drive extension through.
Folks, please, ladies and gentlemen, let's treat the applicant with respect, and they will in turn treat you with respect. Allow them their presentation. You're certainly welcome to your opinion, but please keep it yourself for the moment. Thank you.
There's also a proposed connection south to 82nd Street. This would be for fire access only. So this would be crash gated and serve only police and emergency services. But it was also a requirement that we discussed with engineering.
I'm sorry, just so everybody's clear, by crash gating, we mean that there will be a physical barrier that precludes any apartment residents from traveling through the neighborhood to the south.
We also know we need to provide some sort of cross-access easement to the property to the southwest. It's not currently shown on our site plan. It's something we need to work through. We're certainly agreeable to providing that cross-access. As Regulo mentioned, we will definitely need to go through a natural resource special exemption request. But our goal is to impact to the most minimal amount possible the wetlands and woodlands on the site. Our site plan today does a pretty good job of avoiding all the wetlands and impacting them as little as possible. But we've already studied some opportunities with our civil engineer to rearrange the building so that it impacts them even less. So I understand that the comp plan amendment is a request to convert this site to a mixed-use development, but certainly understand that we will provide any meets and bounds legal descriptions of the wetlands and woodlands to ensure that we don't impact them in any way other than the way that is proved through the natural resource special exemption and protection plans. Another focus with staff has been pedestrian connectivity, so internal walking trails through the site. We know the city will be installing a bike trail along Loomis. We'd love to be able to tie into that and be a part of that. There's a sidewalk on the north side of Terrace Drive, which would obviously continue through our development should the Terrace Drive extension continue. And then just a little bit more clarity on the retail users. So again, we're requesting up to 5 acres of commercial development. What's shown on the site plan here is 2.5, I think. Again, just looking for the flexibility, should a larger office user want to come in and place their office here. The LOIs we've received to date have been from coffee users, banks, car washes, and doctors' offices, financial planner office, that sort of. One of the other items that we are continuing to work through but have received quite a bit of research on to date is the environmental and geotechnical considerations of the site. So all the blue dots on the site plan represent the borings, the soil borings we've taken and tested. What we've learned is that about 40,000 cubic yards of contaminated fill material were placed on the site in about 2011. This was approved by the DNR as part of a soil management plan for a site development in the city of Milwaukee, but it was inappropriately approved, so it probably should not have been. It's a lot of fill material. It extends up to 20 feet in some locations. And it's not geotechnically sound, so it's never been compacted. There's a lot of debris in the material. What that means for us is, and any developer who would look at developing this site, is it needs to be appropriately managed and either capped or disposed of in a low hazard landfill.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit, there are really, two critical things on this site that will allow it to be developed. And these conditions really have nothing to do with what gets developed on the site, whatever the use is. It's just any development will require it. One of those we knew about, which we talked about, which was the DOT opening up Loomis with full movement. We knew about that one going into it. This is the one we didn't know about when we first got into it. And the long story short is, through a series of mishaps, a bunch of debris from a new building, or a building that was constructed at Marquette, ended up on this site. And as Emily said, it's not just that the dirt is contaminated. The good news is it's not crazy contamination, as far as contamination goes, but it does exceed DNR requirements, so it has to be managed. But it's also that you can't build on it in its current form. So you've got to explore different sorts of soil stabilization, haul off, and or some hybrid approach of the two. So what we've done to date is we've kind of bookended the extremes here, where we've said, okay, what happens if we put all 40,000 cubic yards in the back of a truck, drive it to a permitted landfill, pay the tipping fee, and dump it? That's one extreme. In some respects, that's easy. In other respects, it's difficult, because then you worry about grade and getting your sanitary sewer to work, and how does it look with the wetlands next to it. So it's got its own set of challenges. The other extreme is you build deep foundation systems. So the way you think of the buildings that we're proposing on the site, they're big houses. They're nothing more than that. It's just a big house. And typically you would just have a concrete slab like you would anywhere else, and you build your buildings on it. In this case, we can't do that with the current structural characteristics of the fill material that's there, so we'd end up building geopiers or even worse, deep foundation systems. So we've bookended the two extremes of it. We think the right answer is the right answer being the one that is the most structurally sound and the most cost-effective result, and we think that's a hybrid of the two. So it's not, we don't have it 100% dialed in, but I did want to piggyback on Emily's comments, because as we look at this development, as the city looks at this property generally, whatever happens here, somebody's got to tackle this issue.
Before we move off of that, because we're going to get the other question, what kind of contamination is contamination? describe that more appropriately.
Yeah, so
It's not drums of
it's
green gooey stuff.
no, and it's stable in its current form because of the amount of vegetation on top of it, so it hasn't migrated anywhere. It's technically PAHs, so poly. I can't even go there, but I'm happy to provide the report that we do have. But it's only an issue when the site is disturbed. So these are contaminants that don't traditionally leak into groundwater or into native soil. They'll stay in their current form and place until any site disturbance occurs.
This is what, fire protection treatments? If you know.
It's from what we've learned. It's from asphalt and pavement mostly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's. Been about 5 years ago, I believe you passed a city ordinance that prohibited people from coating their driveways with this.
Yeah. So just to summarize and kind of take a step back, I know I addressed a lot of technical considerations and concerns, as did Regulo, but I really only wanted to share these to demonstrate, one, the work we've done to date and the progress we've made on the site, but also to share that there's a lot of moving factors that will continue to inform our site planning. One of those things are all these technical considerations. The other things are all the comments that we're going to hear from neighbors and community stakeholders and from the commissioners and the elected officials. So the reason we're requesting the variance or the flexibility with this general PDD process is to give us a confidence level to continue to move forward with the project, knowing that the city is on board with what we want to build. But still allowing us some flexibility to work through these issues and incorporate the important feedback that we're going to receive.
Okay, is that it? Okay.
Thank you.
With that, I will now open the public hearing portion. You guys can stay there. Let's make sure that we recognize that Mr. Kaposias had a comment relative to traffic and property values. And go ahead, sir. You're next. Name and address, please. This,
Not recommending building site. To tell you. My question is, why are zoning neighborhood city neighborhood? How is the neighborhood rezoned?
let me answer your TIF question. This is not in a TIF district. So were there a request for funding assistance? We would have to establish a TIF.
So, potential contamination. What's the liability for the contamination?
Well, I think as you heard the testimony, this is not the type of contamination that travels. So it's not going to leach out in the groundwater. And
Is there some guarantee of that?
well, a couple of things. First of all, you're not on well water, so your water's clean no matter what. That doesn't answer your question, but that's the practical answer to your question. From what I know of this particular, if this is what it is, This is asphalt sealant, and it sticks to whatever it's sticking to. That's the problem with the contamination. It sticks to whatever it sticks to, and it can't get rid of it. So that's the issue, not that it leaks into the water or anything like that. So that layman's point of view, right? So that's what that is. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, good evening.
Opening of space, those property. People will stay or supplement. Walking. Traffic. Terrace. But numbers are also about the our back up. About
Thank you, ma'am.
I know the it could walking, but also or and whatever walking us X are what and if you correctly
Thank you very much.
One second. I would just like to wonder, might we be able to pull up the GIS map on the screen so that as people are talking about different walk areas or north or south, that we can maybe all see be on the same page at what we're looking at.
Thank you, Roland. Go ahead, sir.
Concerns that a lot of the heard negative. It's gonna and the other see a lot of that area. There have so that it
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, good evening.
Good evening. My name is also
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. Good evening.
backyard with chickens. Have both sides. Condo. Consider continue
Good evening, ma'am.
But I think music and from the team. Yeah. Lots of restaurants. Then they're going, I guess, just shopping. That's hundred added to be for 800, 400, 800 enter are here. Being up. So I echo. This is lovely for our it's going to thankful for our city. It any acre. I focus us.
Thank you, ma'am. So one thing we also don't do here is we don't allow public displays of clapping and things like that. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. It's not to diminish what you folks feel. It's just a sign of respect for the people who are in the audience that may not think what was said was as good. So it's just to level the playing field. So please avoid doing that. Sir, good evening.
Concerned, not was strict. that land. Oil. Oil does. So it's not think the property. I don't want it.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
My name is Nancy. I 7 Terrace. That's a lot of concern at all of that. Neighbor, but residential are all sides. But I want to focus is Terrace Drive, 77. I live on a street which I call T. 77 is right in the Terrace. Condo I live on, my neighbor that I share, her driveway comes out directly to 77. Another tab is condo at very end of that enter Terrace. Already have multiple issues trying to get out of the our small street. Why not the connection to their development? It's back a lot of it. My thought is, how are you traffic, not only here, but on young woman mentioned majority of us love a short, and people are going to make first drive their short get in and out of there. That's
Thank you. Good evening, ma'am.
I'm glad to hear the trash can. Sidewalk. Nothing. I see. I have walking my lot line. I have 3. Right. My backyard. Kids. They had party in the back. have the center
Excuse me, ma'am.
sit there,
We don't allow that kind of language.
whatever they want. Sorry. And just, I would like, I don't know, assurance that stop that talking. If it's animal, wildlife, wetland, I have a path. That. Walk in the. Box with. Would be. Oh. Otherwise, I would. I'd agree. Residential.
Thank you. Sir, good evening.
Questions? How the buses impact buses. We had a similar situation at Hayes Town. How's that going to buses will affect it? Harris Drive or and there are not just cars. But otherwise, other than that, I just
Thank you very much.
right. Please don't ask not change zoning as is subject. Is that correct? That's what I'm asking. That way. I note that people that 82nd, a road went out on the don't quite understand what you cited. And I also object to the fact that we're one of the last Friday had a conversation. I told I want a mail call. We went right down have to back road. All happy. Every kind of and I wish you people, Hanneman Look how far you, Michael. Supposed to sit like I am, this close to it.
Can we keep on topic, Mr. Lewandowski, please? Thank you.
But what I'm saying is that, and the water coming out of him, water, and a lot of them have even asking, maybe by, and behind them. And that would, let's talk about, get it done. I gotta come up 94 years, higher than, thank you.
Ma'am, let's not, it's a public hearing. Yes, sir.
I at up thousand. I would awesome. Sit- Tickets, bank, and gallery. Take that. Tickets. President and saves.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Good evening.
27. Some of the thing at Esmond 76. No control. None at all. Want to go out to safely. We go down to Imperial. We're already rerouting and a lot of animals. Go out there, try to make a left-hand turn. Busy hours. You sit there a while, or you may get an accident. Luckily, it's going to get worse.
Thank you. Ma'am, good evening.
Not gonna- Shouldn't-
Thank you. Anybody else? Don't dawdle. Yes, sir. Good evening.
I have to agree with not property. This isn't minor variance. Said that was required. Not that many. I understand that this is a business venture, government, and a bunch of residents happy with renters aren't long-term business residents taking the neighborhood. I don't
don't see a benefit to government.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Alderman Will Hanneman, you had something?
I just wish to clarify for the record that I'm sitting this way because I couldn't see the speaker through the head. Forgive me if I was offensive.
Okay. Questions from the commission to staff or the applicant? Mr. City Engineer.
Okay. So unlike the rest of the commission, I've got some, because of my role and position here, I've got a lot of knowledge of the project from the very beginning. I can tell you that as far as positives go, I think everyone who drives into town looks at this site as an eyesore. It's ever since I've been here, they've said we got to do something with that. It's, it's got that dozer sitting out there, and it's just kind of I don't want to say wasted space, but it really has been a wasted space. So this really is, I don't want to say a brownfield, but you probably could qualify as a brownfield development. So just FYI, and I've heard, I forget if it's in the staff level or maybe at Common Council, but you mentioned the price of these renters. I mean, when we think of apartments, we think of, low income moving in and out. Could you describe the price, if these were in place today, what kind of rents would people be paying for these apartments?
Yeah, so the rental ranges will probably start around $1,400 a month for the smaller one-bedroom units, and go all the way up to, roughly $3,000 a month for those three-bedroom townhome units.
Yeah.
They're super desirable. They're really nicely finished, single-family quality or condo-level quality of finishes. Quartz countertops, designer cabinetry, high-end faucets and fixtures and lighting, luxury plank flooring throughout. So these are high-quality luxury units.
Equivalent or more desirable, if you will, than what Valo Village was, or very similar?
Equal or better.
Okay. All right. I think that's just good to know for folks that are wondering why develop here. So having said that, the TIA, there was a note in there that
TIA.
What is it?
It's a TIA. Tell them what it is.
Oh, traffic impact analysis. So it was discussed that Art Bauman with DOT had mentioned that he received the TIA traffic impact analysis on November 21st. Our staff has not seen it. Have you submitted to the city or?
Yeah, so what he received on November 18th was the scoping document. So that is for the DOT to review and approve the scope of the TIA.
He's right here.
Oh.
Let me, Glenn.
Sit down now.
Yep, Emily's touching on that correctly. The document that was provided in November was Alexander Cowan with Ayers Associates. Our address is 2975 Swenson Drive, Suite 200, Waukesha. The document that was provided to the Department of Transportation in November was the initial review document that provided some of the initial trip generation and estimates for where traffic will go. We're waiting for response and comment from the state. And once we receive that, then we'll move into the actual traffic impact
I
analysis.
did talk with Art earlier this week. He expects to have that to us next week.
Okay. So I can tell you that you're not the first person that's looked at developing here. Well, I think you're probably my third or fourth people that have actually had some ideas and kicked the can around, and we've gone to DOT to talk about it. So I can tell you that if I recall the conversations from the DOT, they will not let anything develop here, whether it be single family housing or a Mayo Clinic or whatever, unless it connects through to, and they prefer 76th Street. So when you look at where could this connect through, I don't think any of us would want to dump out onto Winston Way, the 82nd Street, or those other streets that are tied into there, knowing that Terrace Drive is indeed, it was intended that. And in fact, I've talked to the gentleman who built some of those condos and was discussing history of when that happened. I think it was known from the beginning that was going to one day connect through. So I appreciate that it's different than what you have today, but was the original intent. That's why the reservation was there. That seems to make the most sense if you look at where would that connect. That does seem to go through. And so as far as what happens on 76th Street, that's part of what the TIA is going to tell us what's required that comes through. So that's important to note for the folks. As far as the property to the southwest, I've also recall the DOT saying that that when they went through and bought the rights, if you will, some years ago, I want to say like 1960s or 1970s, that home that's there can only be a home. In fact, they couldn't go to two homes. They couldn't go to a business and use that same driveway. They have to do something. They have to find some other source to connect. And whether, again, go to Winston Way or out to 76th Street, that's for that to develop that, again, I want to call it brownfield, and that may or may not be the proper term here, but for that property, but that has to connect to something else, if you will. So I am a little disappointed that we don't, I know you've changed the plan some. I would like to see how this is anticipating to connect to those other properties, because I think Regulo commented that it's going to be difficult. I think, if I recall, there's stronger language. It shall be, it won't be approved unless there is a connection to the cross connection, if you will. So that's interesting to see in the next phase. Let's see, let's jump to utility. How are we coming with our utility master plan with the water and specifically the sewers? Really my concern.
Yeah, so we have a concept plan that was submitted as part of our package. But I really think the next step here is to sit down with engineering and planning staff one more time to incorporate some of the feedback we received tonight, but just understand and make sure that our concept plan is accurate. I think the utility tie-ins that we're proposing now are not to Loomis. It's south to 82nd Street and east to through Terrace Drive to connect our utilities.
Okay, when I asked staff, we hadn't looked at that. We looked at it?
They
Okay.
created utilities.
Okay, all right.
But I mean, at this stage, we don't do a detailed review of the.
I appreciate that, but this is really kind of a critical spot between our zones, if you will, and then sewers. I don't have a large diameter sewer surrounding this property, so it's going to have to probably go in multiple directions.
Yep.
And that will be
Yeah, we're
critical.
happy to work through that with you and sit down with you and coordinate. It's
Especially when I hear you talk about car washes, it gets me a little nervous trying to do that. So yeah. But
We told you we gave you a list of uses that have expressed interest, not a list of uses that we find all desirable.
sure. Well, yeah, that's one that I would find troubling with it. Yeah, because you're putting a lot of apartments in, and that creates a lot of sewage and water demands.
We provide, for what it's worth, we'll provide a car wash. Now, it's not a big automated car wash, but we do provide a car washing facility for our residents. And so there, aside from, sewer and water capacity limitations, aside from just the desirability of the use, there's no need for that as far as we're concerned. Again, we just gave you the list of who's expressed an interest.
And then just to reiterate, I know you talked about the actual physical barriers, but we really wanted to make a push or emphasis that we're not going to have connections to those other residential neighborhoods to the south. However, having said that, police and fire were very insistent that they have some way in case they were to need to get in, that's what they would do. So there'd be a physical barrier, if you will, like a blockade, if you will, and the police and fire, not sure how that would happen yet, but they'd have some sort of, if they needed to access it, they could get through there, but nobody else could, and so forth. So just so everyone knows that. I guess the other thing that talks about, so your concept went to Common Council. I know they gave you a lot of feedback. And in fact, there's some other folks predating you that came to Common Council. They walked away once they heard some of the comments from Common Council. And I think that you've at least incorporated everything the Common Council asked you to do. At least Regular Marion, you can correct me, but I'm not aware of anything that this does not comply with the comments that they received. Granted, those aren't binding, but they did receive a lot of feedback, and I think you've complied with everything they asked you to. So from that standpoint, I appreciate the neighbors' concerns and so forth, but I think for what the options are of leaving it just a vacant brownfield versus how we're going to develop, I think this is this is a good use. I appreciate that, so. And then, I should address the Pick and Save comment. So we did spend a lot of time looking at, could we get a road around Pick and Save and around the old Office Depot area and stuff? It just doesn't work. We looked at it several different ways. We looked at maybe taking out the on-ramp or off-ramp, whichever you want to look at it. It just didn't work. And I can tell you, we asked some traffic folks, and maybe your traffic engineer can maybe give us some better ideas, because he wasn't part of the last round that we kicked this around and tried to brainstorm how to make that work. It just doesn't work. It sounds like a good idea until you start to lay it out and look at it. It just doesn't work. So.
Anyone else? Commissioner Burkhardt?
I've got a question for staff. First off here, there was a number of recommendations that were outlined in the packet. It looks like none of these have been addressed, and possibly there may be another one kind of pending here. The recommendations that you had made, page 6, under your recommendation to table, there's 3 requests and a suggestion. Have any of those been run down to satisfaction yet? Are these still open items? It sounds like they are. Just want to confirm.
This is page 6 of the staff report.
Yes, correct. Yeah, the first one about the outlining, the exhibit outlining the areas for mixed use and natural resources, no, has not been addressed yet. Second one is the revised intensity and density measures. As I show in the table, this development is exceeding the standards of the ordinance. So to address that, the applicant will need to revise the conceptual plan to reduce the number of units, reduce the floor area ratio, etc. So no, the second one has not been addressed. And the third one, the site plan has not been revised, but it's my understanding that the applicant is okay to revise the site plan to provide the cross-access connection to the southwest. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess understanding that, and then what the intent is of the general approval and what we're looking to do, I can't say that I would support this as it currently stands. I would ask for some of those things to be addressed most likely, so I would move to table.
It's been moved and seconded to table till when?
I would ask the applicant when they think is a reasonable amount of time to make adjustments.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
So the issue with all the things you mentioned isn't that we're not going to provide them. We fully intend to provide them. It's that we can't provide them now because we think the site plan is likely to change, whether it's because we're dealing with road layouts or whether it's because we're dealing with wetlands or geotechnical structural issues, environmental issues. And so the difficulty we have is if in order for me to respond to a specific meets and bounds legal description of a natural resource area, I got to pay a surveyor to go out and do that. And I have to do that knowing that at this next stage, when we get into the detailed stuff, we work with the staff on utility layouts, road layouts, just general design, right? I mean, what do the buildings look like? That legal description will inevitably change. And so we're not contesting that we're going to provide it. We're just saying, let us work through the process so we know how to do it accurately, do it right, do it once. And the process is neighbors, city, staff, elected officials. As it relates to the density calculations, this is admittedly one where we have struggled with it every time we've worked on it, and we struggle with it not because there's some evasive thing happening, or we went through this at Valo Village. Part of the problem is the UDO, and I'm probably just saying things you guys already know, but the UDO in Franklin doesn't operate the way most zoning codes do, right? Most zoning codes talk about dwelling units per acre as a measure of density. When you look at how the UDO outlines these I don't even know, in intensity standards. It's a formula. It's like an algorithm, and there's all kinds of inputs that go into it. One of the most important inputs that goes into it is, I think it's what's the base site area less what's the green space. And so sitting here today, we can give you an estimate. We can say it will be 70% green space, and I'll agree to that sitting here today. It's just that it might end up being 75% at the end of the day, which of course would then affect the outcome of the algorithm and change the math on it. So when we think of it, and this is what Regulo mentioned, and we met with Regulo yesterday for probably a good hour, just all collaboratively trying to figure this out. We just think of it as we'd like to do up to 400 units and up to 5 acres of residential. That we can agree to, no problem. It's just that how that ultimately works its way into the site intensity calculations, given all the stuff we don't know, that's the challenge. And so my fear really is, I go out and I spend $1 million on engineers and architects to do this stuff, and then I hear from the council, you can only do 100 units. Well, then I've literally wasted $1 million unnecessarily. And so it's not that we're not going to supply all this stuff. It's just really when is the right time to do it. So.
And just to add on to that, so the ordinance that we provided requires us to submit all this information just as a condition of building permit. So all of that will be provided in the interim. It's just like Ian's saying, there's a lot of work to do on the site plan to finalize all those areas. So it's just premature at this point to provide that information.
I have a question and a comment on this, and while I know it's not required, my wish in this situation is that maybe you had worked with the alderwoman for the district and held that public or neighborhood meeting prior to coming to this rezoning request, so that maybe some of the residents could have come with a more secure knowledge of what was going on or what to expect, and really have had that sit-down discussion with them. So for that reason, I'm supporting the motion to table at least until after you would have a neighborhood meeting and be able to work through some of those concerns and hopefully address the concerns. And in the concept review, yes, I was very supportive, and I remain very much at the high level supportive of this, but there are a few details I think still need to be fleshed out before hitting the button on the rezoning for me. So that's that comment. The other question I have, and I heard a couple of the residents bring it up, about what's the benefit for the city or what's the benefit for the neighborhood, and so I'd like you to speak a little bit to what your ballpark predicting the assessed value would be, and then to also clarify for the residents, because this particular property is not part of a TIF district, that assessed value then at completion would go directly to the tax roll. It would not be deferred for another 20 or 25 years, however long that TIF is. But I would just kind of like for the record to hear what the number is on that assessed value.
So we, if it's okay, we have a slide that outlines the various economic outputs of the deal. So while Emily's going through that, maybe I can talk about some of the other benefit pieces of it. And while it may not seem that way based on what we've heard, I actually think there is a lot of aligned interest here. So one of the things we heard was the importance of the conservancy. We share the belief that that is a critical part of the deal, which is why we've outlined our site plan that way. There's a question about, well, can it be enhanced? And now this one gets a little more difficult because we would love nothing more, and our plan is to scrub it out. There's plenty of enhancements that can be made, whether it's planting some additional hardwoods, cleaning out the bad ones, and building some walking paths. We heard from some folks they don't want a walking path through there, but I think on balance, the walking path feels like the right thing to do. So I think pedestrian connectivity that is enhanced, that's respectful of the ecological conditions, that allows the neighbors, or frankly, anybody from Franklin. I mean, it's not, we don't fence this off, we don't gate this off. It's available to anybody that wants to use it. So I think that's one benefit that seems like we heard, and we'll have a neighborhood meeting, but it seems like that was something that people wanted, and we agree that that's a good public benefit.
So in terms of the economic impact that this project, but the others were proposing in the area, we hired Baker Tilly to do an economic impact analysis. And these three projects combined, but even just Vitalogy has a huge economic impact that cannot be understated. So just construction-wise, we're looking at $364 million of economic output and the creation of roughly 2,000 jobs. On an annual basis, it's closer to 39 million of output and 177 jobs. The economic output over the next 10 years is 439 million. For just the Vitalogy, the Loomis site, it's $207 million. And what's striking to us and kind of the most impactful we see is just the local expenditure of disposable income. So the Loomis site has roughly $2 million of disposable income that will be deployed into the community. That's not $2 million generated or spent on our project. That's in the community and in the region more generally. So just a huge economic impact that this project could have. And then I think I heard a question of just the annual tax base. And while we don't know that at this time, roughly, 400 units could generate over $1 million of annual tax base for the city of Franklin, and significant impact fee generation as well. So over $2 million of impact fee revenue, which would cover costs to cover school, law enforcement, fire, to increase staffing and that sort of thing.
The other benefit where I think there's an alignment of interest that we heard tonight amongst everybody is the site is contaminated, and not pointing any fingers. There's plenty of blood in the water on that. But the reality is, if people want this site cleaned up, developing it is the only way that's going to happen. Theoretically, I suppose the city could decide to spend millions of dollars. Now, there won't be any development on the sites, or there won't be any source of funding to do that unless they want to raise property taxes. But I suspect that won't be a popular outcome either. So if we're looking for benefits to both the city and immediate neighbors, I think what we heard tonight was there's a concern about the contaminated nature of the site. Developing it in accordance with all the proper DNR and city controls is the best way to solve the contaminated soil.
Mr. City Engineer.
So those dollar amounts for construction, does that include the cost of the signals and all the clean up the cluster of on-ramps, off-ramps? Do we have that price yet?
That number doesn't probably does not include all the off-site traffic work. In terms of scoping that out, we need a little more information from what that design would actually look like to put a number on it. It's not going to be cheap. I mean, the signal itself, easy,
Millions?
easy. Yeah.
The millions?
Probably not tens of millions, but
We already had it.
a couple millions? Was it tens of millions? Yeah.
And the last thing I'll mention, and then I'll let you do your motion, so forgive me, but we'll make available to the city, the residents, we'll put it on our website as we've done in the past, all this information. So if people want to read the geotechnical reports and the environmental reports and the traffic studies and the scoping studies and our Baker-Tilly economic analysis, we will put all of that stuff on the website. It's readily available. If people feel like there's a fake news element to this, I'm open to having a discussion about a peer review. We hire Ayers and Associates because we think they're the best traffic engineer around. And not the best because they provide a desired outcome. They're the best because they're the most sophisticated, nuanced, most experienced professionals on this subject. So that's why I'm comfortable saying if folks want to peer review the traffic study and spend $2,500 hiring their own qualified consultant to do it, I'll pay for it. But we will make it all available.
So I do agree with the Alderwoman that it'd probably be appropriate to at least educate everyone before we all feel comfortable, but I didn't hear a date. We looking 1st January or the next meeting? Or?
Everybody does my job. What is the date to which we are tabling this to? And we look to you folks for that date. This is your work.
To understanding, I think that one of the prerequisites is a more global neighborhood meeting. To provide fair notice for that, I would say that, you know, if we send an invite out this week, it's probably a week to give people time to organize to attend. And we would be ready to go at any point after that. So
The first meeting in January. What is that? That was a question.
5th.
Regular.
Yeah, the 5th. January 5th.
It is
January 5th?
Yeah.
my anniversary.
Okay, so the other thing that I would have called you privately and said, we need to know what these numbers mean. Operational impact, to me, is a nice broad term, but it doesn't mean anything. We also need to have, and you've got ready access to this, school-aged children in the Franklin school districts from Velo Village, right across the street, similarly priced. So that would help some of these people understand the busing and the kids.
we will make that available, and the data will be the same as it was that we shared for Velo Village, which is we just don't have school-aged children in these projects.
Right. Okay, so the motion is to table to the January 5th meeting. On the motion, all those in favor? By the way, the mayor will vote to affect the outcome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries January 5th. Okay, I'm sorry, sir, the public hearing is closed and that's it.
No, it's okay.
So rude.
Folks, we do have other business items, so if you want to chat outside, that'd be great, but you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
You want to, for the record that I'm back?
And thank you all for coming, and Merry Christmas.
Should we just just take a break, let the room clear?
We'll be back at 9:15.
We need a motion for that?
Stop the recording. I didn't touch it.
Okay.
You gotta stop the stream.
Except,
And Commissioner Leone had returned to his seat at approximately 9:10. So now,
98,
Marion,
post 97.
Ms. X.
This item PM or thereafter, the Common Council chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, to, to take public comments regarding an application for an amendment to a special use permit for an over-the-road trucking company for recruitment, training, and regional office for Go Right Way Transportation Group, providing school bus transportation for the city of Franklin and school district. Hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and a limited number of buses may have an athletic charter on Saturdays. 20 car parking spaces in the front of the building, west side of the lot, and 12 bus parking spaces on the south side of the lot. Commencing at the beginning of the 2023 school year, a second current Go Right Way location will also serve Franklin School District from the east, office located at 7433 South 10th Street in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. The existing special uses for an over-the-road trucking company and school buses, SIC code number 4151, as well as overnight parking requiring a special use approval. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of 15-30701 General Standards for Special Uses, 15-30703 Detailed Standards for Special Uses in Non-Residential Districts, and 15-90103 Applications for Special Use Permit of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance, a map showing the property affected, full legal description. The application and all supporting materials are available for review and may be obtained from the City Council by way of request to the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132, during normal business hours. A copy of the proposed special use amendment resolution in draft form is available and open for inspection by the public at the office of the City Clerk at Franklin City Hall, same address, during normal business hours. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input.
We have properly noticed public hearing on the special use amendment. Mr. Martinez, what do we got going on? Ms. X, what do we got going on? You guys do this just to see if I can get it right.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. This evening, this item is for Go Right Way Special Use Amendment. They have purchased the property at 1141 West Forest Home Avenue, and the resolution in front of you reflects that change of ownership at the applicant's request. I apologize for the errors in the header, but that change did occur after this report was drafted, so that amendment is in your resolution. So school buses are an allowed use within M1 industrial districts as a special use, and as described in the public hearing notice, a prior special use was approved at this location in 2019. The site consists, is this going to work? Regular, can you? Thank you. I'm going to look over here. No. Thanks. The site consists of an existing commercial building and an accessory building and paved parking areas, as well as a soccer field. So the site plan presented here is one iteration of what's being requested. The applicants have actually submitted a minor site plan amendment because they're not proposing any expansion of the facilities there right now. They're actually planning on tearing down a building and will be restriping the parking lot. Because of the limited nature of that, they're not installing stormwater or changing anything and beyond that, that does fall under the criteria to be reviewed as a minor site plan amendment, although obviously that would be contingent on the approval of the use change. So staff is reviewing that currently, and I provided comments to the applicants this afternoon. The one comment that I mainly have is there is an existing conservation easement on the eastern portion of the lot that needs to be depicted so that it's clear where things can and cannot go. So they are planning on providing an adequate number of parking spaces for their proposed users, which are the employees of the bus company. There will be 12 bus stalls, 4 van stalls, and then 16 regular parking spaces and 288 meets those requirements. At present, because they are not proposing to expand the existing parking areas or make changes that would expand the use, staff is not requiring a traffic study or that full site plan requirement, but as a condition of approval of this special use, we're recommending that should the use expand, that the traffic study be required, and that is one recommended condition of approval. And that is essentially the totality of my review. So the applicants are here to answer questions. You may ask them, and let me know if you have any. Thank you.
I assume it's Mr. Bast. Come on up and give us your presentation, and your partner from MSI. That'd be fine. I apologize, Mr. Craig.
I'll start, just give you some background. My name is RJ Bast. 6970 South 6th Street in Oak Creek is our headquarters. So Rightways, we were selected to service the Franklin School District starting 23-24 school year. So that's next year. We'll be providing transportation. So we'll be operating from this location and our Oak Creek location to provide the school district transportation. And we're going to be doing a lot of recruiting out of this location too, to get local residents excited about driving school bus. So that's a big part of our operation and philosophy, is to always be in the local community to provide a needed service. Jay is from MSI, who helps us out with all of our terminals across Wisconsin. Want to go into some of the minor details we're going to be doing?
Sure. You got Jay Craig with MSI General, West 215.
Thank you, Marion. Jay Craig, MSI General. We're at West 215 East Wisconsin Avenue in Neshota. We do assist RJ and his team with acquisition due diligence and site planning and construction design and development. We are architects and construction managers. This particular opportunity has no building opportunities for us in the current iteration. The plan is really just to remove the one small cold storage building adjacent to the soccer field and to restripe to allow for the bus parking. So we're not creating any additional impervious surface or any of that kind of thing. And we've designed the parking lot in such way to stay out of the conservancy areas. And I understand there might be some more specific demarcation that wants to be seen here, but overall, we're just restriping the lot to accommodate bus and employee parking.
Okay, with that, we've had a description from staff and a description from the applicant. With that, I will open a public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one rise, I will close the public hearing on this matter.
Ariel.
Questions from the commission?
Ariel?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Mr. City Engineer.
So while he's pulling up the aerial, I guess one comment was, you mentioned games on weekends occasional, but just probably assume games on nights. So if the Tiddlywink Club needs to go somewhere else, then you're going to be do that like a Tuesday night. That'd be an evening, right?
Some charters at night.
So I'd suggest to you that maybe the resolution, because you referenced occasional weekend traffic, you might reference occasional nighttime traffic also.
Yeah, good point.
So the aerial, so when you zoom in on the entrance on Forest Home, can you zoom in on
Go to the property.
Yeah, so I was hoping you'd do. So while he's doing that, have you talked to the county?
We have not.
Okay. So when we met with you, staff met with you, we discussed that Forest Home is actually a county road. And I have a concern when you zoom in on the, so I appreciate that we're not asking for a traffic study at this time, but you have to zoom in on the county road part. Zoom in closer. Yeah. So notice how the median in Forest Home basically covers half of your driveway, and there's no, like, basically pull-off place. So basically, we're asking all of your buses to come in and out from the south, actually come in from the south. So is that indeed the way the traffic's going to go? Because you can't go southbound in Forest Home and then turn, especially with a big bus, to get into your driveway unless it's going to look really awkward, because there's no lane to get off and then to really turn, because the median basically comes halfway to your driveway. So, if you, right there, you can't, I think it's going to be difficult for buses to come this way, make that turn right there and hit your driveway.
I think luckily the schools are to the south.
So all of your in and out traffic is going to be coming from the south. So it means all of your in and out traffic is going to be through Franklin.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I guess just make sure the rest of the commission understands that. They won't be coming in from the north from, okay.
And if I may, RJ, and we did, the original plan when RJ was evaluating the site as potential acquisition, we looked to see what kind of density we could get on the site if he needed to park a lot of buses. And when we did present that, and there was a recommendation to talk to the county, we did reach out and speak with someone, a lady that was in charge of this project with the county. Once the planned use of the site was a lower density, we didn't pursue those conversations, but we did talk to her.
Andrea Masters by chance?
Yes.
Okay.
That's who it was.
So just for the rest of the commission's information, the county's getting ready to do a big project in Forest Home next year, but it basically stops at the intersection of Speedway. It doesn't, and I was hoping that maybe, knowing what you're doing, maybe they could just go a little bit further north and fix that for you, but I don't know, I think it's going to be awkward. I would, anyway, I'm done.
Let's do Commissioner Leon, push your button, please. Push your button. Oh, you did? There you go. Okay.
So conversely, from what the city engineer brought up, an understanding that your buses are going to be servicing schools to the south, it appears that there would not be any issues with buses exiting and going south, right? That median would not stop. They'd obviously have to cross traffic, and that's its own issue, but they wouldn't be blocked from coming out of your lot going southbound on Forest Home. And I was asking the applicant, but I would defer to the city engineer if he has an answer for that.
So I guess my only concern is, because there's a stoplight there at Speedway, so, you're going to have buses trying to get out while people are trying to, accelerate as they're leaving that stoplight there. And I guess if you've got a bunch of buses coming out at one time, which conceivably you would be, right? That all the buses leave in the morning, that might be somewhat of a difficult situation, but that's a county road.
Yeah. Actually,
So
we do stagger out in the morning and afternoon, because in the morning, not all the kids get picked up at once. In the morning.
right.
They do stagger out.
And I don't know if you've looked at this, but would the traffic be coming out, leaving in the morning, travel north just for ease of getting out, partly to address what the city engineer asked about people speeding up coming out of the Speedway traffic light? Or you might not have looked at that at this point, but
Yeah, and the other thing about the time of day, so typically in the morning, we leave about 6:30.
Okay.
7 in the morning, so it's relatively.
Sure. You won't be bothering me.
he's already at work. So, I mean, bottom line is you're not concerned with that at this phase, right? Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
I have to say it, I'm not thrilled with having a bus barn in the city, but we need the service. I know Right Way, you're a good operator. You run a quality operation, so, it is what it is. I need it, so this is an appropriate use for that particular property. I do want to point out, Regula, if you zoom in a little bit, but we had some issues with this being encroached wetlands. I don't want to raise something that's not factual, but I do recall with the prior operator, there was some conversation about that. Right on the edge of the lot. Down here where there was issues here, but this is in the Conservancy, Ms. X.
That's correct, and that is why staff is requiring the conservation easement be shown on the site plan review. There was a standards findings and decision dated June 18th, 2019. The previous owner did encroach into the wetland setback and buffer, although I don't believe there was fill in the wetland itself, so there are some areas of restoration, and we do need to clarify what their status is, but if they don't go into the conservation easement, then that, again, it's not a concern. So they do need to show us where the easement is, though. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Alderwoman?
All right, I will move to recommend approval of a resolution to amend Resolution Number 2019-7467, imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a special use for an over-the-road trucking company located at 11141 West Forest Home Avenue to allow for a recruitment, training, and regional office for Go Right Way Transportation Group and providing school bus transportation for the City of Franklin School District.
With the addition of a clause permitting infrequent evening and weekend uses.
I would accept that amendment.
Let me get a second. Mr. Second. Mr. City Attorney.
I thought the motion should state a little broader with a more detailed description of the special use permitted within the resolution. Because second whereas it talks about, okay, it's it's operating from 6 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., but then you don't find that within the text of the paragraph 1 in terms of the use. It's all very general. And that was my earlier thought, same as the city engineer had said, it mentions Saturday use of buses. Gee, there's Friday night football games, et cetera, basketball game all through. And so there should be a further description in at least paragraph 1.
Alternatively, your motion is corrections by
With technical
staff.
corrections by staff and City Attorney.
Is that your second, Commissioner Leon? Seconded by Commissioner Leon. On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We've now reached the end of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh my gosh.
Commissioner Leon and Commissioner Burkhardt seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I didn't need to on the adjournment.
Sherry, enjoy your holidays.
I shall